Welcome to the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5-question series. I'm Max Kakis, defense editor of Signal Magazine. Our guest today is Eric Bassel, director of the SANS Institute, a well-known firm that offers internet security training. Mr. Bassel is a West Point graduate. He served with the 101st Airborne Division, where his platoon was one of the first into Iraq during Operation Desert Storm. Eric also served 5 years as a Special Forces pilot. After 9 years in the Army, he went to Harvard Business School. Upon graduation, he joined AFCEA, eventually heading up a division with operations in the U.S., Europe, and China. From there, he moved to the SANS Institute. For the past 5 years, he's worked with the 4 military services and government agencies on cybersecurity matters. Eric, welcome to AFCEA. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Max. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you've had a lot of experience leading people both in military combat and in the business world. Now, out of all of that experience, what would you say are the characteristics in an individual that mark that person as a potential leader?
You know, I always look at the things that are difficult for you to change if you're leading or managing them. And so two characteristics sort of jump out at me. That's just tough to change. It's when somebody's 22, 24, 25, 30, 40 years old. And first is integrity. If a person is going to be successful as a leader, they have to have an unquestioned sense of integrity, both up and down. There'll be no trust if they don't have that. People can see right through it if you don't have a sense of integrity. So that's one of those bare things. You hear it, almost anybody that talks about this is going to talk about integrity, but you just can't speak of leadership without saying that's an absolute must. Second thing I've noticed over time, and it goes hand in glove with integrity, is loyalty. You see it in a lot of people immediately when you say loyalty, they lean back and they say, oh yeah, loyalty to the command. No, I'm not always meaning loyalty up, although that's important, but I'm also meaning loyalty down. When you work in a large organization like the military or AFCEA for a long term, it's very easy to always put the mission first. Mission first, mission first, mission first. Mm-hmm. There'll inevitably come a position in time when you have to choose between sort of being able to do the mission better by holding people back, or still being able to do the mission and promoting other people on. And to be able to look your people in the eye and say, I am going to let you go. I know it's going to make our job a little bit harder here, but that's what's right for you. And eventually, sort of medium and long term, it works out better anyway, because people see that and aspire and say, I know that this leadership, this command will take care of me. So integrity and loyalty.
So how does integrity and loyalty fit into the skill that you have to be a leader, to execute as a leader?
Max, I think those are foundational. It's almost like the foundation of a house. You don't see them, you just expect integrity and loyalty to be there. The skills, I think, that make a leader effective, there's a couple, but communication first. And I know when I hear people talk about communication, I almost always knee-jerk to the outgoing, because that's what we see. But I actually think God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, that we can listen twice as much as we talk. And if you think the more senior you become in an organization, whether it's a military or business, the more your role becomes sort of visionary and dot connecting. And the only way you can really effectively connect sort of things that are going on from multiple areas within a business or within the command is if you listen well and say, yep, I remember hearing something else about that. We need to connect those dots. So again, I think communication is absolutely a very, very important skill that if you can come without it, but it needs to be developed and fostered.
Eric, you led an assault helicopter platoon into Iraq at the beginning of the Iraq War. Out of that experience, but all your other experiences in the military and in the business world, when do you know that your leadership style is working? What are some of the indicators?
Yeah, I think there's some short, medium, and long-term indicators that can tell you how you're doing as a leader. First of all, the short-term ones. Almost every organization, whether it's in the military or business, has metrics for success. On the business side, it's return on capital, it's cash flow, it's management of your inventory. Those will tell you how you're doing there. Within the military, it's your unit status report, your quarterly training, how are we doing, and eventually it's JRTC and NTC and how you did in there. They give you a very good indication how the unit is doing, which gives an indication of how you as a leader are doing, but not directly. Then in the medium term, you can take some other metrics, like it's a little squishy, but like morale. You can walk into an organization and see how the morale is. But another metric we use, it's a medium-term metric, was the employee turnover. People vote with their feet. If they like the organization, they'll stay there. If you start to have a lot of turnover in your organization, it's time to look internal and see if you have a problem with you or your other leaders. Because in this environment, they can move. They can go to other jobs. And then long term, I think the greatest vote in confidence in your leadership is if people try to follow you. Mm-hmm. If a leader sees people that he's promoted out to other roles, and then when he gets moved to other roles, they come in and want to come join him and be a part of his team again, that's a wonderful long-term measure. Now, unfortunately, that's sort of a years to get that feedback, but the others can give you indicators in between.
Yeah, and you also get situations where people are promoted. You get people who get moved to the Joint Chiefs of Staff or get moved to other commands within the Pentagon. And there are one or two key people that they bring with them because they can trust their judgment. They know that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to follow through on what the leader has in mind.
That's right.
One of the questions we always ask is about failure and the ability to learn from failure. What would you say was your greatest failure, Eric, and what did you learn from that failure?
How much time do we have? Yeah, plenty of opportunities. I do think, though, that we have to remember as leadership, it's more like baseball. You're just not going to bat 1,000. You're going to have failures, and it really is important that you learn from the failures and not repeat them so you can fail someplace else. Seriously, when I thought of this question, there's so many places to go, but one failure that demonstrates an important point to me happened when I was, just before I went into the Special Operations Command. I was working as a operations officer within the 101st, and we had this massive mission. This is one of the first missions we'd done, which was sort of a joint operation where the special ops guys came in, and then we did a battle handoff between the special forces and the conventional forces. Mm-hmm. And we were conventional on this one, and so we wanted to make sure we measured up to the big boys. And so we had this mission that involved about 90 different helicopters and a brigade assault. We did it. We'd been planning for about 72 hours on it, no sleep, fly about 10 hours, which is way beyond where we're supposed to. Most of that night vision goggle, very scary flying, do a wonderful assault, and then guess what we get? We get the follow-on mission. And here's where I failed. The task force commander came to me and said, hey, what are we going to do it? And we had rules on how much time we could fly, but aviators hate to pull the crew rest card because it makes you look like less than a warrior. And I remember thinking there is no way we should do this mission. There's just no way we can pull it off safely. But I gave the task force commander an out. I said, there's two ways we can do this. One is you can call a general and say, no, we can't do it. We need to postpone this until we've got rest into the guys. Or second, you can go and ask the crews yourself because you're the only person that's got the authority to order this. He did that. He asked them. All of them reluctantly agreed to do it. We went in and briefed it. And then the Ranger battalion commander sat there and looked at these crews who were all exhausted. He looked at them and he said, how do you feel? Do you feel good? You feel good enough to fly this mission? Mm-hmm. And every one of them said, yeah, I feel okay. I'm tired, but I think I can do it. After about the third answer where he had a pause, he said, this mission's off, postpone it 12 hours. I'm not putting my guys on this flight. And the reason I thought that was powerful, a powerful failure for me, was because he had the moral courage to make the right choice. He stood there and said, no way, this is not worth it, I'm holding off. And at my point, I could have done that, but I didn't. I allowed that decision to get pushed off. So it ended up being a relatively low-risk failure, but something I've held with me. This leadership thing is hard. The decisions come at you when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're exhausted, and it's difficult to always exhibit the moral courage you need to be a good leader.
But you say you learned from that, and you learned something valuable.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's great. Last question. Who would you say are your heroes?
I'm going to change that question just a little bit, because heroes always, especially if the hero I'm going to describe is still alive and present, and he is. Who do I have a tremendous amount of respect for as a leader? A gentleman by the name of Colonel Greg Gadsden. He and I went to West Point together. He stayed in and commanded a battalion in Iraq. On his last day in country, he was coming back from a memorial for one of his troops, and his Humvee was hit by a roadside bomb. He was thrown about 50 feet from the Humvee. Ensuing firefight, he couldn't move. He was pinned down until they could control the enemy and then extract him. And they started the medevaced him back to the Green Zone, then back to Germany, then eventually back to Walter Reed. About 16, 17 operations later, they pulled him off of the drugs because he needed to think coherently, and he and his wife were talked to by the doctor, and they said, look, we're a little worried that if we keep trying these, we're going to get some infection, and we're not going to have a good enough, be able to have a good attachment post for a prosthetic leg. And he said, okay, you can take the leg. 2 weeks later, several surgeries later, they had the exact same conversation about the second leg. So this guy goes from being at West Point, he was a linebacker, he was a very physically fit, he led with his physical presence, just a wonderful man, and all of a sudden he's minus 2 legs. And his response to adversity has been so admirable. And I say has been and still is. He has just been so positive about it. He's used it as a way to lead through his example on how to handle it. He's currently commanding the Wounded Warrior Program for the Army. I think he's a testament to how leaders should react. We're all going to be hit with adversity. Maybe not to the level Greg Gadsden got, hopefully not, but it's how you, as a leader, it's how you handle that adversity that differentiates outstanding leaders from average leaders.
And it's how you respond to adversity and how you make it into a positive eventually.
That's exactly right, Max.
Well, Eric, on that note, I want to thank you for sharing your insight and your perspectives on leadership with us today. We appreciate your support, and we'd like to wish you the best of luck on your future endeavors. I'm Max Kakis. You've been watching the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5 Question Series.